Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should always be connected to the land and to the people of Israel. Happy to be with you guys here with Joshua Waller, Rabbis Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel, all the way from Judea. And we're back 2 weeks in a row. So that's
finally
exciting.
nailed the opening, Luke.
Yeah, it's because I didn't say my own name. So there you go. I can pronounce everyone else's name, just not my own. So anyways, very good to be back 2 weeks in a row. And before we dive in, so much happening. Happy Independence Day, by the way, yesterday. So but before we dive in, guys, you may have noticed some people are commenting, can't see your videos, can't find your content every week. Been down a little bit this week. We don't always know what's going on, algorithm, news cycles, whatever it is. But if you are watching or listening, you can help us out by subscribing and following and sharing, literally sending this podcast to your friends and your family and everyone you know. That helps us out a ton. So
I think comments do also, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Comments do help, yes. And we do read them, even if we don't always respond to them. And Ari loves
them,
the comments,
especially when it's about the aesthetic qualities of my face.
That's right. So I want to dive in with some statistics. Israel's population, Independence Day 2026, which was yesterday, April 22nd. Israel's population total, 10.244 million people. 7.79 million are Jewish. That's 76% of Israel's population. 2.157 are Arab. That's 21% of Israel's population. And 296,000 foreigners, of which I guess, Josh, you and I are in that number. So we're part of the 2.9% of Israel's population. That's up 146,000 from last year. 1.4%.
I wonder how many foreigners are actually pro-Israel, like the Arab number as well.
Foreigners
how many Arabs
inside
living in Israel are actually pro-Israel?
I think probably most of them.
Find out.
You think so?
Yeah. When I meet people from the Philippines or from Sri Lanka, they all love Israel.
The foreigners. What about the 21% Arab?
Oh, you're talking about I don't think so. I think that we have this thing like, Israeli Arabs, and then, Arabs that aren't Israeli and in Judea and Samaria that are known as the Palestinians. A lot of that is foreign imposed identities. And to them, they are jihadists, right. So many
Can
of them.
I tell you a quick story? Because I went to the zoo.
I'll let you argue about it.
By the way, not all of them.
I'll let you argue about it in a second.
Yeah,
Let me finish. Just
for
people who are interested, 177,000 newborn Israelis since last Independence Day.
Wow.
That feels like a lot to me. 48,000 people died and 21,000 people making aliyah into Israel, immigrating into Israel.
How many people?
21,000.
21,000. It's interesting because the first aliyah was I have it right here, from 1882 to 1903. That was the beginning of the modern return to the land of Israel. There were 25,000 Jews that made aliyah in 10 years.
Wow.
And you see, in 1 year now, it's already almost 25,000. What was accomplished in 10 years is now being accomplished in 1 year. And so Israel's just on a tear. It just keeps on growing. It keeps on getting stronger. And it's interesting because all over social media, you see Israel's being destroyed. It's being rocked by rockets. And I feel like Israel's economy has never been stronger. Israel's military has never been stronger. And while the world is watching Israel or speaking about it as if it's falling apart, we keep on getting stronger and stronger.
That's right. Josh, you had something about
what I was
the
going
zoo.
to say was, to Ari's comment, I'd love to hear what you think about this. I went to the safari. There's an awesome safari in Ramat Gan near Tel Aviv there, and just awesome.
Super fun.
Super fun place. So I went with the family. Well, a lot of Arab Israelis actually go there. It was a Friday. A lot of Arabs go place on Friday. So anyway, I'm there, and I see a completely, obviously Muslim Arab family, and you would think, the settler look, just like you got your gun in your back. He had a pistol stuck in the back of his pants. And I thought, at first I was like, because you're we're living in Judea and Samaria. You never see that here. That's something you would never see in Judea and Samaria, because unless you're actually in a full-blown fight somewhere, that's what the IDF deals with.
It's pretty rare to see that in Ramat Gan also.
Right. So, but to your point, there are some that are awesome fighters for Israel. There are some.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I felt like the rest are jihadists, and then I was like, but there are others. It's important to focus on that exactly. Because I've met so many of them, and I think there's probably a lot more than we imagine, but there's so much fear involved in them actually expressing that.
That's right.
That they have to say, no, of course I'd vote for Hamas. I've just met so many of them that see the value of living in a Jewish Israel, just for them personally, for their families, the peace and the calm and the rights and they have more rights and privileges. Where else in the entire world can, the Middle East, can an Arab woman drive other than in Israel.
I think
they
about
have
that
more.
a lot.
So that's an important thing. But it's cool, the 21,000 number. At the times of Ezra, there were 42,360 Jews that came back. So that's exactly half of, not exactly half, but we
Almost,
don't know.
yeah.
It said 21,000. Did it say an exact number?
This is what I got from the Times of Israel. 21,000 people.
21,000. Because I like to be specific about it, the exact number,
that's right.
because it was like that in the book of Ezra, and it's important to know every single Jew counts.
Well, how many donkeys? Yeah,
There were, exactly.
He says that too, right? in Ezra.
7,337 servants and 200 singers.
How many
Yeah.
donkeys?
No,
do
but
you
there were
remember that?
donkeys counted also.
Donkeys were counted too?
So
the
it was
rabbi-
like, I think that like the book of Ezra, like, wow, only 42,000. Like that's like, okay, well, how many horses? How many donkeys? How many servants? Like we got to like buff the numbers a little bit.
Right. Well, I'll tell you who would know the answer to that. Ravital Cohen, the girl that just won the international contest for the Tanakh in Israel that happens every single Independence Day. Right? It's our family tradition that on the way to our family barbecue, where all of the different family from all the different backgrounds come together to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, we listen in the car to this contest where Jews from all the nations around the world and within Israel come together and they're asked questions about the Bible. And I'm saying the most specific minutia. They are asked, what is the name of the town in Gilead that Jephthah went to? I mean, the most specific nuance, and you see the adherence and the love for the Bible that the nation has. And this girl would have nailed that, no question. How many donkeys? Boom. She would have nailed it.
You know, I'm laughing because you remember this time exactly last year we were doing the show together, and former ambassador David Friedman just happened to be watching. Do you remember this?
I do remember. We talked about
I'm not going to roast the individual, but we one of us on the show accidentally said a verse that did not even exist in the Bible. It was hilarious.
A chapter.
It's like Leviticus 28.
I remember
It's like a
Deuteronomy
word.
21 or something like that.
And just hilarious though that Ambassador Friedman was watching. It was like he just cracked up because here his son, like it was true.
No,
His son
but the
actually,
reason I wanted to just sort of pivot to that subject with your permission, Luke, because I know you're usually at the wheel here, but just yesterday, from the entire day, from the moment Yom HaAtzmaut began, this Independence Day, every piece of it was so overwhelmingly infused to its very essence with the Bible, with prophecy, with the Jewish identity of the nation, from the prime minister down to every single person. All it was one singing of the praises of God, gratitude to Hashem, prophecy fulfilled, and then to see these Jews from around the world, people are like, oh, the secular people, it's a secular country. Talk about missing the boat here.
You're talking right now about the national ceremony where they light the torches and it's like the
Well,
national
I was talking in
celebration.
specific about the Chidon HaTanakh, but we could talk about that also.
Well, I'll tell you, for the first time, I'd always seen clips of the national ceremony, but this was the first time I went to my father's house. We watched on this big screen TV, me and all my kids, and the national ceremony was shocking how Jewish it was, how godly it was. Because I remember seeing clips of it 10 years ago. There are girls skimming around in bikinis and dancing. And it was so secular.
That's why I never watched it. I was
Over
depressed,
the last years, this year, it was so spiritually oriented.
Wow.
And then every time someone lighted a torch and they would say, well, this is in honor of the soldiers, and this is in honor of the doctors, or this is in honor of whatever they represented at that time. And they would say, this is in honor of God.
Wow.
The whole audience would erupt in applause. Like God got more cheers than every other topic that was honored.
Yeah,
and
I
they
also-
kept on honoring God over and over again. It was such a religious ceremony. I'd never seen anything like that. The thing that really struck me the most about the ceremony was the first singer that was brought on had long tzitzit all the way down to his ankles, but he wasn't wearing a kippah. And that's kind of his style. He's like, listen, tzitzit, that's like from the Torah. A kippah, that's kind of like a tradition that was brought on a little bit later. Like Abraham wasn't wearing a kippah. And he's like, no, I'm just living by the Torah. I want to live this way. And he's opened up a whole new way of secular Israelis kind of like identifying, living, being religious, being more observant in their own way. And he was the lead singer that opened up the whole ceremony.
Yeah, it's called Tzitzit Lelo Kippah. It's an actual movement of like, yes, we wear the fringes on the garments that the Bible says, but no kippah. Meaning that there's, to someone looking from without even an Orthodox Jew from the exile could, with or exiled diaspora eyes, look and say, oh, they're secular because they're not keeping the abstract rituals that have sustained us in the exile for thousands of years. But there's a deeper integration. The Bible tells us, the Torah tells us, when I return you to the land, I will take from you a heart of stone and put within you a heart of flesh. You'll have a circumcision of the heart, that there's something deeper happening. And when you see this generation of kids, you can't see them through the same eyes. There's something so much deeper and more primal and integrated and infused within them that they are living, breathing their Judaism. Who was this chef? The chef guy, you know who I'm talking about? There's a world-renowned chef, a multimillionaire. He's all around the world. He's an Israeli chef. October 7th happened. He came back to Israel, joined the army as a medic in the front lines, nearly died, and he lit one of the lights. And then there was R.E. Spitz, right? His parents were born in America, made Aliyah to Israel. He lost an arm, 2 legs, and fingers from the other hand. And he walked up there with his prosthetics and just sung the praises of God and Israel. It was just so moving. I couldn't help but to just cry the whole time.
80% of Israelis that are watching television are watching that national ceremony. And they built the national ceremony in a way that's obviously like appealing to the nation. And it's just showing that that's where the nation is at. The nation is becoming more and more connected to God.
And for the cynical people out there, because I can't remember now the last public address that the prime minister's made where he hasn't said at some point, Be'ezrat Hashem, please, with the help of God, with Hashem's help. And people are like, oh, he says that, it means that elections are coming, right? Because he's like pandering to the nation. First of all, I think that's overly cynical. But even if it's true, it shows something about the nation.
Right.
That's the way to pander to the country, is by talking about God and how much we rely on God.
Guys, we'll get back to the podcast in a second, but I want to tell you about our Q2 product. We have one new product every quarter this year coming out, and they're limited, very limited edition. Genesis 17 says that God promised the land and to the people of Israel as an everlasting possession. Amos 9 declares that Israel will never be uprooted in their land after they're replanted here. And Jeremiah 31 talks about the only way Israel can cease to be a nation again is if the sun, the moon, and the stars cease to exist. Those are God's divine, everlasting declarations of Israel's eternal existence. So our team made a limited edition shirt just to emphasize these eternal promises from Scripture, from the mouth of God himself. It's called Exist. It's got a beautiful design with the land of Israel. The Star of David has also got the Israel Guys logo on the sleeve. So guys, if you want to declare God's promises to the world and that you stand with the landed people of Israel, get our limited edition t-shirt. These are being put up for just a limited time only, so you want to get it. We have blue and pink, so something for the men and the ladies. Click the link in the description below to get your shirt today and showcase your support for the land and people of Israel. Back to the podcast.
Can I share another miracle? Or Jeremy, you had something else.
Well, I was just going to say, like, one other story that I just saw in the Times of Israel, that the head of the Shabak, which is like Israel's internal agency, the FBI of Israel, his first day in office, he changed all of the screensavers and background pictures to be, instead of the logo of the Shabak, to be a picture of the Temple Mount.
No,
on
really?
all of
Are
the
you
computers in the
serious?
office.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
And there's something about it that is really fundamentally
wild.
changing Israel, because the Shabak, that's really a stronghold of the deep state.
Right,
And,
and
he's
then
like
everybody
going
said-
right into the belly of the beast, and he's like, no, we're putting up the Temple Mount now. That's on the computers.
And what
of
did
all the
everybody say?
offices.
Not everybody, but a lot of the deep staters in the deep state, they were like, oh, that just shows he's messianic, and like as if that's some sort of bad word, right? But in the end of the day, the entire nation, is like, when I say messianic, I mean like yearning for the arrival of Mashiach.
Well, yeah, who is the whole? Everybody in the world is fighting against Israel, and the real haters. Who do they hate the most? They hate Ben Gvir and they hate Smotrich. The two guys that are focused the most on the Temple Mount, they're focused on religious Israel, God-fearing Israel. So again, pointed in this
Josh,
direction.
I think you should share the story. You might share it better than I can about the farm that's being established here on the Mount of Blessing, like where we're sitting, and the soldier that it's being established in memory of.
Sure. Yeah. So the Eitan farm is just being created here. There was a soldier that it was a really hard story, but this is another example of what Israel does in hard times. Eitan was an amazing young man, very cheerful, amazing young guy. He actually carried it's actually not normal for Jewish people to do this, but he was a very special fellow. He carried a Tanakh, a Jewish Bible, in his pocket wherever he went. It was kind of a phenomenal thing. Like, that's not common, right?
No,
Like,
not at all.
Not at all.
Right.
He had just gotten married. He was a part of the IDF. He was just basically got off his honeymoon, went to the war, and was killed in Gaza. Horrific.
From the Jewish community where we're sitting right now.
He was our neighbor. And just now they're starting a farm in memory of him. And again, this is just so incredible to me to see the power of what the Jewish people do with hardship. You're taking it, and then they're going to settle the land. They're doing something in his memory to remind people, of this amazing young man. And so farms being established. So it's just amazing to see the land coming back to life. But yeah, and we're obviously a part of that, and excited to see that.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, you spoke about him passing away, him dying in war. During the siren, I had a lot of experiences. I'm not going to spend all of the time, but during the day, I walked outside onto my balcony, overlooking the hills of Judea all the way to the Dead Sea. I could see Masada, and the siren sounded, and like many others, I closed my eyes. I was whispering psalms, and I was thinking about my friends and the people I know and just that have died, and I was just picturing being there by their side, giving their lives for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people, for the nation. And then I opened my eyes and I saw the mountains of Judea spread before me. And I said, this is what it was for. This is what to be able to see that right before me. It was just like, it's hard to explain how like vivid and transcendent that experience was, but it was a one-to-one. And that's the thing. Like, I think about it. Jeremy and I went out, we put it all on the line, settling the hills of Judea. There's many times where we almost lost everything, and we still may, but I think people lost everything with bad investments, and at least we've put it all on the line for the same thing that you guys have.
When the siren went off, I was actually in the middle of a vineyard. We were planting vines, literally thousands and thousands of vines in Shiloh, the Shiloh Valley, and incredibly beautiful spot, a 30 dunam something vineyard, just the most incredible. But that's when the siren went off, and again, it was that moment where I'm thinking back over the year, and we've lost friends, we've lost people that were close to us, and but then seeing the Jewish people, the life of the nation. You're sitting in the middle. It's like this balance between the harsh and the hard things that we're dealing with this redemption process that's unfolding before us. We're planting vines, like the prophet said, you will yet plant vines on the mountains of Samaria, Jeremiah 31, and the land's going to come back to life, Ezekiel 36, and like so much of the prophetic word of God is coming to life, and we're witnessing it right in the midst of the challenge. The alarm goes off. You're touching the miracle of Israel. At the same time, you're remembering the lives that were lost to achieve that.
Just want to say, you're not just witnessing it, it's happening through you. Very often I hear you guys speak as if you're just so honored to be witnessing what's happening, and you miss that, like, if the Bible were to be written right, and I believe chapters are being written as we speak, you guys are a massive central part of it. And a tremendous source of light for the Jewish people. Like,
I know my fingers are absolutely sore as they can be. We were digging in the amazing soil of Israel.
It's called a shovel, Waller.
I was literally digging
the
into
amazing
the rocks.
soil of Israel
my
has a
goodness.
lot of amazing thorns. That's
The land of Israel settled through hardship. That is actually
This is just a thought that came to me. I was talking to Teal, and she pointed this out to me. I'm like leading the prayer service now 3 times a day, so I'm kind of paying a lot more attention to the prayer service. And there's one part in the Amidah, the silent prayer, where you give thanks to God. And there's one part where it says, Modim anachnu lach, al shanachnu modim lach. We give thanks to you, God, for giving thanks to you. The fact that we're able to give thanks to you, we want to thank you for that. And I was thinking Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom HaZikaron, it really brought that out to me. And I was like, Israel is sort of like divided into these like movements. There's seculars, and they're like loving Independence Day. They recognize, well, there's a Holocaust, and we have a new state, we have independence, we have a strong. God's not a part of that. Then on the other side, there's Haredi ultra-Orthodox Jews that see God in everything. But they look at the state of Israel and they're like, oh, accept that. I'm not a Zionist. I'm an ultra-Orthodox Jew. And by saying, wow, we're so lucky that we get to see the miracles of God and recognize what time we're living in. And in that way, that's really what brings us around this table today, that we're actually seeing God alive, the miracles unfolding, the prophecies being fulfilled. And it's really to give thanks to God, but that we're able to thank him for that we have the eyes to see the miracles of Israel and to be a part of it.
On this note, though, while you're talking about the miracles, I have to thank God. I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but Israel, just 2026, right? The war's starting, and the year and all of the things that are happening right around us right now. Did you know Israel made the largest sale of a company in Israel's history? $32 billion sale.
When did that happen?
The company Wiz.
Sure.
So the Israeli tech company, massive company, $32 billion sale, largest in history. Now, why is this important that it happens right now? Well, Israel's fighting a war that cost a ton of money. Do you know just the sale of that company and what came into the Israeli government from that has boosted
taxes, you're saying.
taxes.
From the high Israeli tax.
From the high Israeli taxes. I mean, that's the way it is. It's a startup country. I mean, like it's unreal. The whole war has been affected by the largest sale in Israel's history simultaneously. You talk about the miracles. How in the world does that come? How did that happen?
You know, the shekel's higher than it's been in like 3 decades.
Stronger
or something
than
like
it's
that
been,
too.
right.
Yeah, stronger. Yeah.
And so this is a part of it. It's the mirror. It's absolutely miraculous.
I haven't
timing.
looked up the stats, but like Israel's stock market, like the investments in the Israeli investment economy has like skyrocketed in the last 2.5 years. The last 2.5 years of wars.
Which again, we have to thank God. We have to just thank God.
Well, I think on that note, we can transition a little bit. And what we've all been talking about and recognizing is that we are recognizing the miracles of what's happening in Israel, while the rest of the world is like recognizing and calling out the negatives. And you know, so like it's war and Israel's oppressing people. And, you know, there's this story of this Jesus statue being smashed, and that's all the world could focus on, right? But like we're saying, all of Israel, not all of Israel, but the majority of Israel now is recognizing that the Geulah is happening, like redemption. God's kingdom is literally happening in the land of Israel and the people of Israel, and people are turning more religious and becoming more faith-oriented, and it doesn't look exactly how we probably would have predicted it's going to look, right? Like it's all these different types of people. And I think that kind of goes right into the story, because we do want to talk about the statue being smashed, but it's probably not the perspective that you guys are expecting to hear.
I think they expect us.
I mean,
not to
well,
talk
if you're
about
watching this or listening to this, then yes, you are.
It's
you are
such a
expecting
dangerous
something like
issue
this.
for us to bring up here on the show that we should all have to go in a circle and weigh in and just take turns. What do you think? What do you think?
But the reality is like it's
What
all
happened?
of
What
all
happened
of
first?
us, but all of us have this perspective that is so different than how the rest of the world is looking at it. Because I was watching clips of our mutual friend Yishai Fleischer on Piers Morgan, and like Piers Morgan's like, but what about this statue? But what about this statue? And you know, 60% of America now doesn't support Israel, and it's because of things like this statue. And what about this? You know, the military is known for smashing statues. And what about this? And it's like that the world is obsessed over an Israeli soldier smashing a statue of Jesus. That's like one-off incident, and now the guy's like going to get 30 days in prison, or that's like being investigated and disciplined, and they've already replaced the statue and all this stuff. It's not normal, right? And it's a universally condemned across Israel, right? Act, Jewish, all circles. But the world is like, well, what about this? This represents Israel oppression and genocide and apartheid and occupation and all this kind of stuff. And that's not what's happening. So anyways, Josh, do you want to start?
The real simple thing is that Israel condemned it, of course, and the highest levels, and they've already restored. And well, what happened? A soldier, there was a statue of Jesus.
Southern Lebanon.
In southern Lebanon, a soldier.
Christian village.
Knocked it down and smashed it with a sledgehammer. Okay. Obviously,
Statue of Jesus.
Obviously offensive. And no one in Israel said, oh, that's a great thing that should be done. No, nobody said that. And then it was dealt with, and there's actually a process being a legal process now going through that happens in a country that has law and order, and that's what's happening in Israel now. What I want to point out before, just to kick us off here is that why is the world? I just typed it in. You can't type anything. Statue. Type it in, and Jesus statue. Boom. Every media network, BBC to Al Jazeera, the haters are loving it. This is what they want to project to the world. This is what Jews equal. They equal persecution of other minority groups. They equal persecutors of Christians, Arab, whatever. Jews just hate the world. That's what they're trying to paint. Now, I want to contrast that with the actual truth of what's happening. And the test will be done right here, because did you know just this week that a mob of 200 Muslims attacked Christians in Bangladesh? and injured 6, cut down trees in a Christian cemetery, Catholic cemetery, and absolutely destroyed a Hindu temple just this week. No. Did you know that? No. And are any news agencies promoting that, except for where I found it was the Catholic World Report? That's the only place you're going to find it. Like, no one is talking about the extreme Islamic persecution of minority groups, specifically Christians, since this topic is Christian. No one's talking about it. Nearly, some report as many as 22,000 Christians killed by Islamists in Africa alone since 2024. We could talk about Syria, and we've talked about that before on the show. Many people are not talking about the Christian situation in Syria, but in 2011, there was some 1.5 million Christians living in Syria, and today there's only like 300,000. What happened? Well, it's obvious. They were massacred, and we all know that. But is anyone talking about it? No, there's not massive news. Nobody's talking about it. Damascus, I'm just going to run through these because this is what the world needs to understand is the war actually is. There's an Islamic war against all we talk about minorities, we talk about Christians, we talk about Jewish people. This is the actual attack that this soldier was actually fighting to free the world from. And of course now this is complicating it and making people think, oh, no, Israel's the bad guy. No, Israel is freeing the world. And yes, they're going to deal with these small situations, but don't be confused about what's actually happening on the ground. Islamic attacks in Damascus, 22 people killed, 63 wounded. That just happened 2025. Did anybody know about it? No. Afghanistan, crazy attacks happening. Istanbul, crazy attacks. Spain, Russia, all across America, for goodness sakes. There's even statues. The exact same situation as what happened on the IDF front with a soldier has happened across America. Look at these pictures. This happened in America, and no one even knows who did it. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
Is it true that on average one Christian church is burned every week in the Muslim world?
Yes. That is our researchers put that stat together, and I think that just says it the best. That says what I'm really trying to say. One church a week in the Islamic world is burned, destroyed. You talk about Christian persecution at its mass, and yet the world is trying to mask that and say, you know what? These Islamists aren't the real problem. It's the Jews. Look at this guy who took a sledgehammer and destroyed this Jesus statue in southern Lebanon. No one in Israel supports that. And yet that force, everything is backwards from the actual reality of what Israel stands for and what Israel is giving its life. The whole nation has been in war against this evil regime that is persecuting and burning and you talk about absolute massacres against the Christian and free world. And Israel's the front line of fighting it.
I think it's really remarkable that the Jews are 0.2% of world population. Not 1%, it's 0.2 of 1% in the amount of attention that the Jews draw because a random soldier somewhere did something. It's all over every news outlet while people are being massacred, slaughtered, and killed, and no one's talking about that at all. To me, that is really noteworthy.
I'd like to dig just a little deeper on this front and go a little out of the box. First of all, a diplomatic answer to that an editor at thejewishedition.com said, I'm just going to read it. It said, here in Israel, we hear ourselves being relentlessly attacked by Christians like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, and the Pope with their millions of Christian followers. Yet we know there are also millions of Christians who love Israel. So how about we won't judge all Christians who hate us by your outliers, and you won't judge Israel by one soldier who destroyed an idol? So that's a nice answer. But I want to dig a little deeper because one of the reasons I love Samson so much, again, Prophets of Israel Daily, we're in Samson, so I see everything through that prism. I got a lot of feedback from our last show, like, Ari, you're really digging in on these, but that's what, Jeremy and I spend tremendous amount of our time doing that. Samson, when the 3,000 men from the tribe of Judah handed him over to the Philistines, he said, I'll let you do that as long as you don't try to hurt me. He wasn't worried about them hurting him. He was worried about hurting them. Right? And that was refreshing to me after all of the Jew on Jew. What I'm trying to say is I don't like Jew on Jew violence. And I couldn't help but to think that this soldier is taking a sledgehammer to a Jewish guy, a statue of a Jew, and I know that that's like crazy sounding to think that. But at the same time, I do see that he was a Jew. And from my perspective, and maybe this is a hot potato, but I look back at what he said, and I think about Deuteronomy chapter 14, Banim Hashem Le'elokechem, we are the children of God. I can imagine saying, we're the children of God. I'm the son of God. I could picture him saying that. And some people, as he's teaching the non-Jewish world, just like we are, just like we tried to share and to teach and connect also, they could take that and misunderstand that and whatever it is. The point is, I think it's not right for us to accept third-hand slanderous things, although millions of Jews were killed throughout history in his name, for us to besmirch his name. I don't think most Jews in Israel have a negative association with who he was as a person. And so to take a sledgehammer to the face of a Jewish guy that was killed by the Romans, that sort of was disturbing to me. But also on a deeper level, if it sort of exposed the underlying idols that so many of us have. It's one thing for us to say, we should be destroying idolatry, but what about our own idolatry? People are like, the soldier that did that, he's going to ruin everything. What is America going to say? What's the world going to say? We need the world. We need America. And then you hear people's idols coming out about all the things that we need the support of that this could undermine. If someone has an argument about the actual principle of the matter, then I want to hear that. But it's just a pragmatic issue that we're going to lose all of the idols that we think are the reason we continue to exist. We should, like those who in glass houses, right, shouldn't throw stones, right? If you see someone else's blemish, your own, we should really be looking within and say, what are our real reasons for being against this? Now, you quoted something, right? What were you saying about it?
About a Bible verse or something?
Yes.
Oh, you talking? Well, I was just thinking about it. I know you read my thoughts here, but my thought is that in the Bible, it says don't make images and don't have these things, right? So there is a big difference in Christianity. I mean, between the Catholics and the Protestants, and I mean, how many? What is there? 60,000 something different denominations, but and all broken up along these lines. Of some believe that it's okay to have these statues. Others, I mean, even Christians themselves would be destroying things like this in an internal fight to say, no, you're not allowed to have like these statues. You're not allowed to have this kind of stuff. So. From a Jewish perspective, you shouldn't have these images, and
from
Israel,
some Christian perspective,
and from some Christian perspective,
from a Ten Commandments perspective,
you're
like
not
just to
allowed.
not have
That's
idols.
good. Right. So you're not allowed to create an image and then worship it. Well, that's exactly what. If a Jewish person walked into, let's just give an example. If you walked into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, there's hordes of images around, and people are bowing down. And there's a rock when you first walk into there that's absolutely smooth. As people are bowing down, they're kissing it, and they're wiping their tears on it, and like this. It's the picture of what a Jewish person would describe as idolatry. That's just the picture of it. It's the Catholic version of of Christianity that we've all seen. So in some ways, if you were to give the benefit of the doubt for someone that, like Ari's saying, I loved your argument there for this. But at the other hand, when we're talking about very sensitive issues here, that of course everyone should feel free to state their opinions. But at the same time, what if this Jewish man just said, what if it wasn't so entrenched? What if he was just saying, you're not allowed to have create images? I mean, okay, that's actually a Jewish command. So they're going in war. Of course, I'm not saying that he should do this or shouldn't, but what if it was, like you're saying, it was a 10 commandment kind of thing, and there'd be thousands and millions of people around the world that would agree with that. But because of the backdrop of this situation, of course it's being misrepresented. Because of the hostile form that the whole world is taking against Jews, people are looking at the Jewish people in a bad light and not giving any sort of trying to understand why would a Jewish person
no
think
generosity
this way.
here,
There's no generosity,
benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. We're at a place right now where we need to be shining light.
That's right.
That's just the era that we're in, and I think why aren't we? I mean, there's an argument to make. Lebanon is not right now under the jurisdiction. It is not. There's not Jewish sovereignty in Lebanon.
Yeah.
So there's not that commandment at this point to go do that. And why isn't there Jewish sovereignty? Because we're so terrified of what the world would say. Instead of doing how many times in my own service we go into Lebanon, we have to occupy southern Lebanon because they start murdering Jews and shooting missiles at us, and then we have some sort of leftist prime minister that gives it away, and then there's new attacks and more blood and more Jewish murder, and then we go back into Lebanon. why aren't we just saying Lebanon is part of biblical Israel? It's part of the nation of Israel now, because we're afraid of what the world is going to say. If we focus on building the temple, if we focus on destroying the idols in our own hearts, the light that will shine from that, other nations will start to take apart their own idols without us needing to smash it with a sledgehammer. That's where I'm at. So I didn't feel good about that. It wasn't a good feeling in my heart. Right or wrong, I don't know, but it didn't feel. Jeremy?
Yeah, the way that I feel about it is that everything that happens to Israel happens for Israel. This event that happened, it's clarifying things, meaning there's like a swath of Christians in the world. If there's one Christian that turns against Israel now because a soldier destroyed an idol when he wasn't commanded to, that was condemned by the whole country, then okay, that person can turn against Israel for Israel destroying idols. Meaning, I don't feel like the people that are truly seeking after God, that are really reading the Bible, that are really looking for the truth in the world, that are seeing the evil that's out there, and the fact that Israel is standing alone against this evil, that's not really going to change one's heart one way or the other. And if it does change their heart, then they were never really with us from the get-go.
They were looking for an excuse to
totally. I mean, there's so much influence right now and so much money that's being poured in order to try to break up the alliance between Jews and Christians.
That's right.
Israel. So this was just a perfect opportunity to try to kind of put a wedge between the world. But I'm saying if there needs to be a wedge, let it be over idols. Okay, let that be a wedge. That's
and
not like.
If you will just go with us for a minute here. What does that international body that wants to separate, which I think you're right on it, Jeremy, this is the point that the world is they're in glee about this moment because they want to separate these two partners in this redemption process. And what we're sitting around on this show, the people that can help to bring light and to help support the Christian community that's supporting Israel, there is a good that's happening there. But every time you will see this, they're taking the fringe and they're trying to use it to divide. If it's the church in Gaza that was hit in a of course Hamas was using the church and whatever, and the
an accident.
This situation happens. Boom! Everybody locks in on it because it's important to them to divide. They've got to. There's international people that support Israel religiously. That is an issue, and we're going to use every single thing. And that's why even these small instances of this random event that happens is going to be highlighted and thrown to the front of the stage for the entire world to then, pick apart and try to push off. Because unfortunately, there'll be people that didn't have enough belief, not enough faith. They didn't understand God's purpose in Israel. They didn't understand the situation. They didn't understand the redemption process that's unfolding before our eyes. And they will flake off because of the situation, just like you talked about, Jeremy. And that's unfortunate to me. But just to understand the battle that's being waged and the enemy that is fighting to divide any kind of support, to try to make Israel stand alone, which will happen. It's going to happen. But hopefully, my prayer is there's going to be a couple people from the nations, hopefully a couple more than just a couple, that are going to stand with Israel against this tide of anti-Israel propaganda, Jew hatred, all of these evils that are coming at the Jewish people from everywhere. They're going to see very clearly the truth and the lies, and they're going to side with Israel, and they're going to see through this stuff as clearly just propaganda.
See, I think it all actually boils down to, in some ways, Independence Day. I mean, for me, there's something about this holiday. I kept on thinking about Hanukkah. I kept on thinking about Hanukkah because Hanukkah is not a holiday that's in the Torah. It's not a holiday that's even in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. But it's like a recognized holiday that everyone around the world celebrates. Even Christians recognize Hanukkah. It's like Jesus went to celebrate at the temple, the Feast of Dedication. That's Hanukkah. But it's not in the Torah. It's not in the Bible. So what is that? There was a time that the Jewish people, they were living a relationship with God, and they defeated the Greek-Syrian army. They're like, we're making a holiday for God. And then what's happening right now in Independence Day is that just with these stats that we were reading, there's about to be a majority of Jews in the world that are living in the land of Israel. That hasn't happened since the first temple. I mean, that hasn't happened in a long time. And the fact that people are celebrating that now as a religious holiday, I mean, they're going to synagogue and they're making special prayers for that. It's like, this is the holiday of our generation. And the people that see that the Torah is alive, that God is alive, that we're a part of the unfolding story, just like the people of Hanukkah back then, the people of Israel are today. And that's going to be the dividing line. Is the Bible alive? Is God alive? And those that are living in a living relationship with God, they're not going to let one soldier over there make one difference to them, right or left.
Can I just read something that your wife sent out? Because there's a new Siddur, a special prayer book, all for the day of Independence Day. Really? Because there's liturgy that has somehow been calcified and solidified thousands of years ago. And there's certain segments within Judaism, particularly diaspora, that refuse to even entertain the thought of touching that or touching it up or making something new. But at the same time, here in the land, it's impossible not to see the miracles. And so there's a new insertion into the actual liturgy of Israel for that day of Independence Day. And with your blessing, I'm just going to read it. And if it's too long, you could just edit it out, the whole thing, whatever. It says, "We thank you for the miraculous deliverance, for the heroism and for the triumphs of our ancestors from ancient times until our time. In the days when your children were returning to the borders, at the time when our people took root in its land, as in days of old, the gates to the land of our ancestors were closed before those who were fleeing the sword. When enemies from within the land, together with 7 neighboring nations, sought to annihilate your people, you, in your great mercy, stood by them in the time of trouble. You defended them and vindicated them. You gave them courage to meet their foes, to open the gates to those seeking refuge, and to free the land of its armed invaders. You delivered the many into the hands of the few, the guilty into the hands of the innocent. You have revealed your glory and your holiness to all in the world, achieving great victories and miraculous deliverance for your people Israel to this day." That is about the War of Independence. And we say it, and it's part of our prayers because we see that miracle of God. There's no way we would be here without God's direct intervention in a thinly veiled mask of nature. But really, the hand of God has been leading us the way until this very day, until this very war.
What's really beautiful about that is that the first couple of sentences are the same sentences that we say in our liturgy for the holiday of Purim, for the holiday of Hanukkah, that we've been saying now for thousands of years. And now that same liturgy is being infused for what's happening for our generation now. And after the miracle of Hanukkah, the Hasmonean dynasty lasted a sovereign nation of Israel for 77 years. And now it's the 78th year here in the land of Israel. And I just find that remarkable that we are not only not going away, but we're getting stronger. And it's just time to give credit to where credit's due and to give praise to God. And so I love the fact that there's that new prayer that people are saying now in synagogues all over the country.
I don't know if anybody knows this, but Naftali Bennett put out a tweet that said twice. Naftali Bennett. Yeah, right. Yeah, we're like, we're not so sure what's going on with him, but we'll see. Twice in history, he put out a tweet on our next post here. He says, twice in history, we had a Jewish state here in this land. Twice we failed to pass the 77th year, brought down by internal strife and baseless hatred, and were sent into exile. What is the twice?
I don't know.
Because I was always a little bit stumped by that.
Why
as well.
Twice? Meaning in the time of Ezra, we lasted here for several hundred years.
Right.
In the Hasmonean kingdom, we lasted 77 years. So maybe that's just like a mistake by Naftali Bennett.
That's what I was wondering. I mean,
not many of us here have a very good, not
but
exactly
anyway,
positive
I
view
think
of
a lot of
Naftali
people
Bennett.
may have seen this, and I was scratching my head, so I was wondering if there was any quick answers to this. But that is really awesome what you said, though. It's passed. We've passed like it's a historic milestone.
Totally.
Like
I
this
just want
year.
to say 2 things to wrap up this whole topic, and I have one more topic for us potentially here before we wrap up today. And regarding this Jesus statue, number one, there's 2 sides. There's just like a basic principle side, like military ethics and things like that, which obviously this violated the IDF, moral code and everything. They dealt with it. It's a one-off situation. Israel should not be judged on it. And from a faith perspective, even though like Josh was saying, for someone like us, I guess we'd be considered Protestant Christians, definitely not Catholic. Like the idea of icons and idols in general is offensive to us, but we wouldn't go out and smash idols.
And then there's a third. And then there's a third, Luke.
Not independently, right? So on both counts, we would consider it wrong. But I just wanted to piggyback on that before you say that. I think it was what Jeremy said. Like at the end of the day, and Yishai mentioned this, said this very strongly on Piers Morgan. Israel's winning.
Yeah.
And God's hand is at work, and the people of Israel are turning back to God. And like this one-off situation should not be considered as like it should not represent Israel, and it doesn't. It's just the left-wing media and those who hate Israel who are using that to represent Israel. And like you, I think it was you, Jeremy, saying, why do we care about those people anyways? They already didn't stand with Israel.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, if you love God and you love the Bible and you love Israel, like then stand with Israel because Israel's winning. And like Israel is moving towards redemption. And so if you want to get on the bandwagon, get on the bandwagon. And if not, then see ya. Like who cares? Like it, right? So anyways, I have one more topic, but did you have a third opinion on that?
Well,
is it controversial?
Yes.
So
I'm just saying there's
boy.
a third group of, or there's the third opportunity. Like there, you outlined two politically correct kind of things, but then there is the Bible that outlines, and that's where some people are taken very literally. And there's so many stories throughout the Bible that are just not politically correct, and that's just a fact. And there is that third opportunity for people to understand a situation like this in a biblical context of Gideon or things like that. So that just outlined.
When
there is another group
when Israel is restored and living under a God honoring
well, the Sanhedrin. I was talking to a Jewish guy about this.
When the temple is restored, then there will be the proper biblical authority to for biblical order to be restored in the land of Israel. We'll get back to the podcast in a second. If you guys haven't heard about the new initiative here at the Israel Guys, we have a brand new newsletter that is going to 90,000 people Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's called the Israel Guys Show Notes. It is the news and the stories you need to know from the Middle East, from the land of Israel, from Judea and Samaria, biblical connections, and encouraging verses from Scripture, all packed into one easy-to-read newsletter. It comes out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Takes about 5 minutes to read. I even read these because our team does such an amazing job with the research and the writing, putting that content together, and it's absolutely free. All you got to do to sign up is click the link in the description below. The Israel Guys Show Notes. Join 90,000 people and growing that are getting this brand new newsletter delivered straight to your inbox, absolutely free. Stay up to date with what's happening in the Middle East, Israel, and Judea and Samaria, and what's happening through the lens of Scripture. Today, just click that link in the description below. Join the movement. Now, back to the podcast. All of the land of Israel. But I have one more topic, and this might be a little controversial too, and I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts because there was a ceasefire. I know we made it 45 minutes without talking about Iran, but there was a ceasefire that was supposed to expire last night, and the world was watching to see if war would restart, right, with Iran. And Trump comes out, I think yesterday, and I just want to read it because it feels like such an admission of defeat. He says, based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Field Marshal Asim Munir and the Prime Minister of Pakistan, we've been asked to hold off our attack on the country of Iran until such times as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. And then he said, so we're extending the ceasefire indefinitely. No, not even, he didn't even put 3. They said 3 to 5 days, and they said that's not true. But basically, he's like, okay, it's not working. There's a pretty funny AI video of Trump just talking about how, we're negotiating with Iran. There's nobody there. And we're bringing them to the table and there's nobody there. And right, like he's presenting this as a victory, but it really feels like a defeat. So,
and what does Pakistan have anything to do with it? That
right. So, but I was looking at it this morning. It's interesting because Israel is at war with Hamas in Gaza. There was a ceasefire. And right now, Hamas is refusing to disarm and give up their weapons. That feels like a defeat. There was a war with Iran, and then there's a ceasefire, and Iran's refusing to give up their enriched uranium and their missile launchers and the ballistic missiles. There's a video of a ballistic missile being paraded through the Tehran square yesterday. And there was a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And then there was a ceasefire, and Hezbollah is refusing to disarm and get out of Lebanon. Mm-hmm. Feels like defeat in 3 different places. I read some information this morning that I am now becoming of the opinion that it's more of a victory than appears on the surface, but I'm interested to hear you guys' opinion. This is why. In all 3 of these situations, Israel's gone farther than they've ever gone before, and right now, Israel is holding a large chunk, I forget the percentage, of the territory of Gaza, and they're refusing to back off. In Lebanon, Israel is holding a large percentage of the southern territory of Lebanon, south of the Litani River, refusing to back off until Hezbollah disarms or is obliterated, right? in Iran, Trump and the United States, in coordination with Israel, is holding the Strait of Hormuz and blockading the coast of Iran and blockading the Karg Island, refusing to let any oil out, and they're refusing to back off. So obviously, it remains to be seen. We're in a waiting pattern here to see will they eventually back off, and it's very possibly they might, but we've never seen this before. We've always seen war ends with Gaza, they retreat, they withdraw. And then that goes back to normal. Same thing with Lebanon. They retreat, withdraw, goes back to normal. Right
2 years
now,
later.
Israel is holding a large part of the Gaza Strip, holding a large part of Lebanon, and Israel and the United States are blockading Iran, literally, and crippling their economy. They're saying they're losing $500 million a day. The government might fall apart at any moment because just from an economic standpoint. So anyways, that was encouraging me, but I'm curious to hear you guys' pessimistic opinions of that.
I think that the war isn't done yet. I think that we are in the middle of a long war, and this is just like a peaks and valleys. And it's good to point out that Israel's never been in a stronger position, and Hezbollah has never been weaker, and the Hamas has never been weaker, and the Iranian regime has never been weaker. So in that way, Israel is winning. But have we won yet? Is there victory declared? No way. Right. But the fact that we've taken land, that's a good sign. Until we actually build Jewish communities in southern Lebanon and build Jewish communities in the Gaza Strip, then we do not have victory yet. And so it's kind of just a process. And I don't think that this ceasefire is going to last forever. I think that it's just a matter of time until the next thing breaks and eventually we will go back to war.
Yeah, I'll just say this because I have to say something. There's battles. And these are different battles. Are we winning this battle, losing this battle? Until we actually win the war. And it's not even the war against our enemies. It's war against the idols in our own heart. Until we win the war, which is to build the temple on the Temple Mount, on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, the rest of it is battles. That's what it's really about. And when we shine that light, it's going to be so beautiful and so blinding that it will shift the entire fabric of reality, of humanity. And we'll be beating our swords into plowshares. We won't learn war anymore. And that's what we need to keep our eyes focused. Everything else is just background noise. That just like in the days of the judges and in the days of Joshua, where God says, I keep the enemies in the land to test you, to test your hearts. Are you following my word? Are you following me? We've just continued. We're back in the land and where the story is continuing. And so let's not get lost on the enemies and understand that it is there as a deeper gauge for our own hearts.
Well, I do think that it's important to recognize that, like, the stories of the Bible are a prophetic template. They're not just stories of our history, but they are prophecies of what the future, they're representations of what the future will be. And this famous story that Saul had Agag on his knees and didn't finish the job, that's kind of a template for where we're at right now, right before the arrival of King David. We are exactly in that Saul period. And so the fact that we haven't finished the job in Gaza, we haven't finished the job in Lebanon, and we haven't finished the job in Iran, even though they're on their knees, all three of those entities are just barely surviving, and we haven't actually cut off the head of Agag. That's because that's where Israel's at right now. And we're just kind of waiting for the leader to rise up to actually finish the job.
You know, I think if we want to see where we're really winning, we have to look at the areas that the whole world's not focusing on. The three areas that you just mentioned is what everybody's fairly, just enthralled with. They're looking into those zones. What you haven't seen in the media is anything about Judea and Samaria in quite a long time. Used to be they were completely just enthralled with that. It was all about Hebron and Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, and up here in Samaria. And did you know, while everyone else is thinking about everything
indicator
else,
of really positive news?
It's an incredible thing. I was just talking to the one of the leaders here in Samaria just last week. Just for Samaria, and I don't know what the stats are for Judea, but just in Samaria, there's 100 new communities being established. That is humongous. I mean, massive. That is way out of proportion from what we've seen. The advancement of in this way is humongous. We've not seen that in I don't think since the founding of the country. 100 new communities being established, like the establishment of Jewish presence back in the homeland is at a exponential rate right now. The farms add on top of these small Jewish communities being established. The farms on top of that, it's hundreds more. Like, we're talking about Jewish presence being established again. And it's miraculous. Only the prophets of Israel saw this thousands of years ago and tried to put it into words. Did put it into words and beautifully, and we're now seeing that happen.
In 2007 2005, right? When Gaza was when Gush Katif happened, the disengagement from Gaza. There was Jewish communities in northern Samaria that were also uprooted. It didn't really make the news as much because, like, it was all, the focus was all in Gaza. But right now, Jewish communities, some of the same ones, are being reestablished in northern Samaria with full backing from the IDF, full backing from the Israeli government. The head of the Samaria Regional Council lived in that community and was pulled out in 2005. Now he's back. He and his family are being reestablished there. But I read something really interesting that was kind of shocked me on the Jerusalem Post this morning, saying that a lot of this expansion happening in Judea and Samaria is actually happening with full coordination from the American government and President Trump, which is definitely not something that the mainstream media is going to tell you, but it's pretty encouraging if it's true.
I find it a little bit discouraging if it's true. I would love it.
It's encouraging that there's an American president that is standing with Israel to the point, I would say it's discouraging if you view it as, oh, they got permission from America and so they're expanding Judea and Samaria. But if you view it as they're expanding Judea and Samaria, and as a result, America's supporting them, then I think that's encouraging.
It's encouraging for America.
And there's probably a little both.
It's encouraging for America. I think blessing will come to America. I also thinking about Trump, that he's just such a good businessman, that he looks and says, okay, I'm not up for election again. I don't need to worry about people think. But he's thinking about his legacy in this world and the next. And he's making a very good investment right now, standing against the Tucker Carlsons and against this very loud voice from within his own party saying, you're a slave to Bibi. He could be reactive to that and say, like, oh no, I'm not, and I'm going to do this. But instead, he is acting with integrity and with courage. And he said, my whole life I've believed this. You think Bibi is making me do that? It's a crazy thing. But I would like it if Israel was doing this without needing to have a pro-Israel. Because what about the next administration? It begs that question. The next administration, whether it's Republican or Democrat, that doesn't support that, are we going to stop? So that's really the thing that alerts me the most.
I'm also curious how much they are depending on permission, or support from the United States. Because it feels like there's more support inside of Israel than there's ever been before. You have Bezalel Smotrich, who's the finance minister, but he's also the minister for like settlement affairs or something. And then you have the IDF, who we've actually met a lot of the heads of the commands in these areas. These guys are like, I think he was out here again yesterday, right?
Now, can I tell you what happened
the establishment of a farm. But like there's incredible support from inside of Israel as well.
The head of the Central Command came and gave a Torah lesson at the synagogue, at the yeshiva, the Jewish learning for what would be a yeshiva, like a religious school, like a Bible school. Here in the Mount of Blessing, gave a 45-minute lecture to the students of the Mount of Blessing yeshiva. This was the head of the IDF command for this whole area. Is that not redemptive? I mean, is that not surprising? I mean, before today, this would just go right along, Jeremy, with all the amazing, this awakening that's happening in the land of Israel. Before, you did not see religious people in the top command of the IDF. That's new.
There was always a glass ceiling. It felt like there was a glass ceiling, that if you had a kippah on your head, if you had tzitzit, if you were a religious, there's only so high they're going to let you go up before the deep state is like, no.
Right.
We got to keep it in the family here.
I feel like that's been busted. And these guys, because these guys are God-fearing, incredible. They're given Bible lessons at the Bible school.
There's several senior-ranking IDF officers that work under the chief of staff and the defense minister over all of the different regions and commands in Israel. Two of them were sitting right here at this table in the last month, and both of them were religious Jews.
Yeah.
And one of them read to all of us and all of his soldiers the letter that he wrote to go in the introduction for the IDF Haggadah that they put out for Passover. He had written it in the car on the way here, and he's like, I want to read this to you guys and get your feedback. It was like his letter for Pesach, for Passover.
And it was amazing. Really cool. Luke, I know we have to close up, but here's one last thing that I wish to all the haters of Israel, that they would be like the man. I think of King David's words, let all those who hate Zion be pushed back, be turned back and put to shame. There's an epic video of what I wish on all of those haters as we, this guy, he runs up to try to yank an Israeli flag off of this thing where all the nation's flags are up on this wall. He runs up to grab the flag, and he's
going for the Israeli flag.
He almost gets it. He falls and flat on his back. And so yes, this is my prayer for an entire world that would choose, if they will, to hate Israel, that would be their. That's my my desire for all of them is to be so similar to this man. But my hope is that they would choose opposite and that they would come alongside and
Choose life.
join and be a part of the
I
blessing.
think it's a good message. Like, Israel's winning. If you want to get on the bandwagon, you better get on, because at some point the option and the opportunity is going to disappear. At least biblically speaking. I'm talking a lot about the Bible today, and they're
What
pretty
we need is
clear.
that we have like a clear barometer, like who's winning this war. The more that we continue to settle and reclaim the land of Israel, that's all you need to know. They don't need to have like strategies and what are the statistics and how many ballistic missiles and that. Just the land. It's all about the land. And as we reclaim more and more land and settle more land, plant more vineyards, then we know that we are winning.
I can't help but to hear the words of, Abraham dug wells and the Philistines filled them in, right? And then Isaac redug the wells of his fathers. That's what I think about when in 2005, when for some reason the government coupled the destruction of settlements in Samaria to the transfer of Jews out of Gaza and single-handedly handing it over, which, by the way, when you think about Tucker Carlson and everyone's like, oh, this is all a pretext, October 7th was a pretext for a land grab. Let's not forget that we had the land and we gave it over in hopes of having peace for unilaterally for nothing. But the point is we are redigging the wells of our fathers. Yeah. And that's a beautiful biblical way to see it.
Beautiful.
That's right. Well, guys, make sure you're following along. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you check out thelandofisrael.com, the Land of Fellowship, also the Prophets of Israel Daily. We'll put link down for Jeremy and Ari's website in the description below, but it's super easy, thelandofisrael.com. Make sure you are leave us a comment so that Ari can be encouraged this week. He needs your encouragement. But no, I think all of us do read the comments from time to time, and definitely appreciate you guys watching and listening wherever you are all over the world. Thank you for standing with Israel. Because you're standing with God and you're standing with the Bible and the kingdom, the redemption that's happening here in the land of Israel. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in Israel. We'll be back soon here at the Israel Base.